if you're able, like Michael, if you're able to get to this point, if you're the type of person who's able to save, over $1 million by age like 24, I probably made 5 times my salary in the 7 months after I quit my job.
Just take a day, take a week off, like think it through. We'd hate to see you destroy your career by just leaving, and all this. And I was like, no, I'm good. He was barred from the premises and he had to fly back to New Jersey and explain why he was creating a hostile work environment. So that was the most gratifying thing in my corporate career ever. Hey guys, Matt McKeever here with
Michael Rosehart.
And welcome to another episode of Mike and Matt on Fire.
On Fire.
Yeah. So this video we want to talk about, we get lots of questions around the subject matter of when do you know when it's the right time to quit your job? And there's all different variations of this, right? Do I need the 4% safe withdrawal rate, or I have a family, should I do 3% safe withdrawal rate? All those different things. And so I think first it makes sense just to kind of document where we were at when we left our full-time employment. So do you want to start off, Michael?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what were your thoughts? But I can go first, sure. So you remember having conversations with me before I made that jump. And I remember one call we had one evening, we were on the phone for about 45 minutes, I was driving, and you gave me some really insightful advice that I always think back to, right? And I was on the cliff, right, where, I was actually at the 4% safe withdrawal rate. So by definition, I was, good to go. But having, a young child, right? My daughter was just, an infant basically at the time, or, 1 year old at the time. And, with my wife also wanting to live off our portfolio, I'm like, wow, I got to cover all of our family expenses. And like I was 4% safe withdrawal rate with our whole family's expenses. So technically, I should have been by definition fine.
Yeah.
But still there was that fear, right? And I remember you remember that fear that I expressed.
And I had that fear too.
And you had the fear too. And I remember you said something to me along the lines of like, if you're able, like Michael, if you're able to get to this point, if you're the type of person who's able to save, over $1 million by age like 24, you don't think you're going to create a little bit of passive income or more even active income while you're in retirement, or like higher than 4% rate of return on your portfolio? Like, do you think, it's very, very likely that's going to be the case? And I remember you saying that, and I'm like, that's so true. I think that people who are able to get to the 4% or even close to that 100%. Are the type of people who are type A's, and they're going to be able to earn so much more in their life that they need not worry so much. And in fact, like post, if you did like a post-mortem, right? I made more money after leaving my job than I'd ever made in the entire time. Like in the year since I left my job, I've made more than I made my entire career. Yeah,
and like I think you'd said like by multiple factors, right?
Yeah. Like I probably made 5 times my salary in the 7 months after I quit my job. And that's partially because of things that I set I maxed out I got a lot of lines of credits, and I lined up like 5 deals before I quit my job. Yeah. So I had like financing in play, and I had a whole bunch of deals lined up. So I did it very smart, I think, and that's why I had so much income.
Tried to be strategic right before you left your job.
But like, what about you? I remember you told me a bit about your story.
My story was a little bit different. I'd always planned on firing at age 35. It was just kind of, I discovered the idea.
Number.
Yeah, nice round. And like, it's funny because like everyone gets these net worth goals or these age goals, and we always use nice clean round numbers, right? Like no one's ever like, I'm going to save up $848,000, $233 because that's exactly what the 4% safe withdrawal rate says. We go, I want to save $1 million, or I want to retire by age 35.
Yes.
And so for whatever reason, I'd always arbitrarily picked the age of 35. And so all my best friends will remember way back, as soon as I was like 25, I kind of really discovered the idea of early retirement extreme and all that great stuff. And so essentially I had this countdown on my phone, and literally was counting down. It was like 2,666 days until you're going to retire. I was like, this is so exciting. And like literally every party people would be like, oh, like what's the countdown now? And like whip out my phone and be like 2,555 days or whatever it is. But what ended up happening was I left my job, I left full-time employment way before I'd planned to. And I kind of say that I jumped before I'd fully built my parachute. I had the instructions on how to build a parachute, so I didn't feel that scared. But I ended up leaving it just because I kind of hated my job. And I was working as a public controller in a pharmaceutical company, CPA, and we went through a series of acquisitions and mergers. My position just became unpalatable, and I really didn't like the new people in the organization. I didn't like the new company policies. I didn't like the corporate culture. I didn't like the fact that they were making fellow employees cry every day for a week straight. It was extremely stressful.
That's the corporate world, dude.
Right? And it was so cutthroat, and like these American consultants came in, and it was just completely unpalatable. So I ended up, the way I decided was more like, I was like, I fucking hate my job. I was like, I'm just sick of this. I'm sick of grinding so hard on someone else's behalf and hoping that they'll come through on the promises they've made rather than being fully in control. So I did it way before the 4% safe withdrawal rate. I was more focused on, does my real estate portfolio provide more than enough passive income for me to leave my job? And that was true. I could continue on with my current lifestyle no matter what. I could have probably had a 30-40% reduction in my net income from rental properties or my gross rent and still been able to stay afloat. Like, I wouldn't have been actively growing my net worth. But when you really break it down, for a lot of us that get to early retirement or even start thinking about financial independence, if we got to that point, you know, we have significant assets and resources and skill sets that are going to allow us to be resilient almost no matter what happens. And like Michael, I saw my net worth increase significantly more once I had all this free time rather than stressing over it. So I think that the lesson here for you guys is there's no perfect cookie cutter approach on when to make the jump into financial independence, when to retire early. But I think that one of the most important things for you to do before you make that jump is know what you're spending, right? Like, there's no way you have ever made the jump if you weren't able to predict what you expected your future spending to be, right?
Yeah, and I would say, like, you know, I'm an Excel junkie, so I
yeah, same.
Me too. Yeah, so we live in Excel, right? And I think we do a lot of future mapping, and I would say take it even a step further and, you know, project what you want your life to look like.
Yes.
You know, are you planning to have kids?
Well, like, is there going to be lifestyle inflation or deflation? Because it can go both ways.
Yeah. I actually, when I did it, I was doing it in the big house. So I retired assuming not the duplex lifestyle, and then I downsized to a house that was half the value. So mortgage payments are half, property taxes were half, and they had an Airbnb tiny house and an apartment in the lower. So, like, you know, I'm like 1% safe withdrawal rate at that number, right? Which is like ridiculous and insane. And why didn't I ever quit sooner? But you know, you don't have hindsight, right? At the time.
For sure.
Hindsight's 2020.
And honestly, probably had we not started doing things like going out to real estate networking events, doing London on Fire, it would have been a lot more difficult for us to make that jump if we were completely by ourselves. So I think another really important thing to do before you make the leap into financial independence is either try and find a community, ideally in real life. Like, I think we both had the early retirement extreme community as well as the Mr. Money Mustache community, and that's really valuable, and I love those online forums. But there's still something that really grounds it in reality once you see the person IRL, right?
Yeah, IRL is key. I remember when we met and, like, you and I at Bigger Pockets, right? And I was like, wow, there's someone else in London doing this. Like, and I was the same kind of way. Like, I was like, hey, I'm gonna retire at 29, it's gonna happen, or 27. And it was 25 in my job, and everyone I can't remember how many people, like, I can't even count them on my hands, how many people that I told this to in passing, or like at a Christmas party or whatever, and they're like, you know, way over their head, or just laugh, right? Just laugh in your face, be like, that's so stupid. Yeah, like, you're such an idiot.
Oh, wait until you really grow up, or wait until you're an adult. You'll see it doesn't work that way. So much of that.
Like, they're like, oh, you're just a kid. Like, you don't even know. Wait till you have kids. Like, wait till, like, oh, wait till you move into the suburbs and have a real life. Like, oh, wait till this happens. And, like, all of those things have happened to me now, and, you know, I'm still
You've still been able to check off all those milestones of adulting without having to have the inflated lifestyle, right?
I feel like we're both doing great jobs at adulting, and, you know, we're fired, so it's obviously working out. For the people out there who don't, you know the rule, like, that's, like, it's 25 times your annual expenses. So find out. You could do your current expenses, but I think it's even safer and more conservative to do your idealized lifestyle. So if you plan to, like, you know, get married and have kids or something, try to map out what that's going to cost you, right? And there are a lot of great resources online to do that. Hit me up on my blog at 25 for free if you want to find out what I spend with a family, and, like, I can give you tips. There's a bunch of other blogs that I've read in the past that with people with families, and people have more call it fat fire type of lifestyles. So if you don't know what your you know what your lifestyle is going to look like, you don't know how that's going to cost, like what that's going to cost you, how you cost all that out. There are a lot of great resources you can use to cost out those things. Like, what's it going to be when I have, you know, what's my budget going to be with 2 kids? And there are tons of resources out there from people who can show you what that's going to cost you, right? From a realistic perspective, not like, you know, the guy you talk to in your office who spends like $8,000 a month on his kids. Like, I'm talking like resources from frugal people, right? And, like, you're totally in control. And that's the thing that I think is so great, right? Like, I mean, you talked about having 2,000 something days, you know, 35,
countdown.
And you retired, you know, quite a few days earlier than
Yeah.
that. What was that moment for you? Was there like a moment that just clicked and you're like, instead of finding a new job, because at that time you probably were thinking, I'm going to leave this company, but instead of getting a new job, what in your mind really clicked to accelerate that timeline?
Actually, yeah, that's a great question. So literally, I decided that I didn't like the company I was working for anymore. I didn't like our new upper management team, and I essentially started applying to other jobs. So I did all kinds of interviews, and I was approaching those interviews differently than I'd ever done an interview before, right? Like, I was no longer the scared little kitten that just desperately wanted someone to love him. I was just like, what's the work culture actually like? What are your real expectations? What's the long-term plan here? Is there room for me to grow? Is it going to be fulfilling? And up until that point, I was always the person I would get flushed. I'd turn bright red during an interview, right? And
Me too.
I'd stammer and stutter and all that, and I'd trip over my words. And for the first time when I was doing these interviews, I just didn't give a fuck. And so that was very empowering. And all of a sudden, when I started not giving a fuck, it seemed like all of a sudden these companies wanted me more. And so I remember there's like a moment that's so crystal clear. I mentally quit my job, but I was still there. But I've been interviewing at all these jobs, and I found the perfect replacement job. I was in a pharmaceutical industry, it was in dental. And otherwise it was almost identical, other than publicly traded company, private company with profit sharing instead of stock options. So it checked all the boxes. It was literally the perfect job for me to jump into. And I can remember the CFO calling me, and we were chatting, and he said, congratulations, Matt, we want to offer you the job. Here's kind of the rough breakdown. The recruiter will send you all the details, but I want to talk to you personally first to give you the good news. We want you to start as immediately as fast as possible, but we know there'll be a transition period at your old job, so just map it out for me, kind of what you're expecting. And I was just like, wow, thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity. I was
Ego stroke.
Right, yeah, and it was huge, and that was important. It gave me external validation that, no matter what, I have a valuable skill set. The worst case scenario, I can shop around if, say, fire doesn't work out the way I expect, whether financially or emotionally or whatever the case is. And so I can remember saying to him on the phone, okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to need a couple days to think it over. And it just blew his mind, because he was just like, well, what? I thought you didn't like your current job and you wanted to move on. And I was like, yeah, no, absolutely. It's been really stressful. I just need a little bit of time to think. And he was like, okay, no problem. Call me tomorrow. And so I called him tomorrow or the day after, and I was like, you know what? Thank you so much for this opportunity, but I think I'm going to have to decline it. I'm just not ready. I don't think I'm going to commit the way you guys want me to commit, blah, blah, blah. And anyways,
in his mind, he's probably like, there's just no understanding of fire rates. He's probably like, psh.
No, yeah, it definitely blew his mind. And he was like, wait, whoa, Matt, I know we talked about a lot of work that was going to be involved, but he's like, that's just at the start. He's like, once you get through it, he's like, you're really going to get back down to those 50-hour work weeks. He was like, it's not going to be that bad.
Down to 50 hours, right?
Oh. And he was like, it's really not going to be that bad. And he was like, our profit sharing, if we had the right controller in place, I think blah, blah. And I was like, you know what, I really appreciate it. It's been so stressful that, and at the time I didn't feel comfortable saying to him I was going to retire. I was like, I think I'm just going to take 6 months or a year off, do some traveling, because that was an easy way for people to kind of understand it more,
Yeah.
The idea of I'm never going to work again is almost too crazy for them. And I can remember him being like, well, if compensation's a problem, he's like, we probably have 10% to move. And I was like, this is awesome, right? Again, that huge ego stroke, but that wasn't what...
Coming from that position of fire, right? It's surprising how much, when you're playing hard to get, and even when you have that position of FU money, it's surprising how much more you're going to get.
Yeah.
You're going to get 10% more salary right there, boom, just because you had that confidence.
Yes. And so it ended up, I can remember him being like, he was so confused that I didn't take the job, especially once they increased the compensation even higher than what I'd asked for initially, based on the original interviews. And just at that moment, it kind of crystallized. And I was like, you know what? Thank you so much, but thanks, but no thanks. And then the next day I walked into the VP of Finance's office at my current job and said, we need to talk. And I told her I was retiring. She understood it more than a lot of other people in the office. I can remember other VPs approaching me and just being like, you know what, Matt, it's been a really stressful couple of months. just take a day, take a week off, like think it through. You know, we'd hate to see you destroy your career by just leaving, you know, and all this. And I was like, no, I'm good. And like I can remember the day after I gave my, I'm sorry for this long rant, but this to me is really what FIRE created for me, was the opportunity to really have options. And the next day, they brought in some U.S. consultants to help us do our jobs, which really meant they were going to replace us. And so I'd seen the writing on the wall, and the consultant came in and, you know, yelling, screaming and stuff about deadlines. And I said, I'm not sure if you realize this, but I gave my notice yesterday. I'm here as a courtesy. And then he blew up even further on me. And I did something I'd never felt comfortable doing before in the corporate world. And I recommend you guys get more comfortable with this idea. I emailed HR. And I said, you know what, this feels like a very hostile work environment. This consultant's been here for a week, and every day of that week, he's made my AP clerk cry. I was like, you know, you guys talk about corporate culture and how important it is and how we're all going to be a team, and yet you want us to work like 80 hours a week with no job security, and you're taking away like our bonus and option structure. Like, you can go fuck yourself. And the next day, so the day after I sent that email, it was like 5 p.m. when I sent that email, he was barred from the premises, and he had to fly back to New Jersey and explain why he was creating a hostile work environment. So that was the most gratifying thing in my corporate career ever. So yeah, that was the moment that really crystallized for me.
And it was like, you were just set on this path of freedom.
Yeah.
And like the nice thing is, I want to like reiterate that point that, you know, Matt made a really good point about, you can always go back to work, right? Like worst case scenario, you're 5 years in, you're like, hey, you know what? I'm eating away at this portfolio quicker than I thought I was, or, you know, we had a recession or whatever.
Yeah.
You can go back for a year and get yourself back on track.
Exactly.
It's not like you're going to just eat away your whole principal and be like, oh, I'm broke now.
Yeah.
I'm 80 or like 70. What do I do? No, you're going to, you know, people who get to this point are able to kind of project, you know, what the future is going to look like and plan accordingly, right? It's about being strategic.
Yeah. And like, if you're even thinking about actually becoming financially independent, retiring early, like if you're like, oh, I'm at the 5% or the 6% safe withdrawal rate, listen, understand that like you are a grinder and hustler unlike 99% of the other people out there. So worst case, when you go back, like, and you're like, oh shit, like, you know, I'm getting whatever, I might only get 60 or 70% if I rejoin the workforce 5 years later and my skill set's no longer sharp
or whatever.
You'll ramp up so fast. You did it once, you can do it again. I think that's the biggest thing to remember.
I will say, like, I will qualify this with like having been, you know, retired for a year. It's really hard to go back into.
Yeah.
You know, even if you take on, like, I've been taking on some courses here for, you know, financial planning and whatnot. So like, you know, the insurance, mutual funds, all those kinds of courses you have to take by regulation law to do financial planning. Going back to that full time, even just for a week or two, and I've only been doing it for a week or two, just because, and I don't have to do it fast, I could do it slower. But even going back and taking a course or something feels like going back to full time work, and you really have to get into a different mindset. Like it's totally different when you lose that flexibility and that freedom to just do what you want every day. And so that's something I will qualify is that it feels like a lot of growing pains when you go into something like that. But when you're doing it from a position of like, I'm choosing to be here, I'm choosing to do this, it's something that I want to do, not for the money, but for other reasons, and it's so much better.
Well, and even building off what you're saying, I think part of the reason that you're struggling with, you know, some of the courses you're doing is because you don't have a strong enough why. And once you're financially independent, like you need a really good why to do anything. Because otherwise, like there's a million others. Literally, you can do almost anything you want now. So like, for you to do
10 directions, and you're like, where do I go? What do I do?
For you to do anything now, you need a really strong why, because otherwise it feels like a chore, and you're like, you know what? I don't need chores anymore, right?
Yes. So it's, and like before it was always, you know, a trade of time for money, right? And once you have the money means almost nothing to you anymore. It's not about time for money. It's just time for like purpose, really, time for fulfillment.
Exactly.
And so then you're like, it's like, for instance, a lot of the material in this course that I'm taking right now. I feel like I'm back in university again, and it's like, do I really need this? Am I ever going to apply this information? No, like it's just so stupid. They're making me jump through these hoops, and so that's where it's getting difficult for the why. I know at the end that like getting this course is going to allow me to help a lot of people. And so that was the goal, right? Is my purpose.
Absolutely.
Why. But it's those individual activities that lead up to the why that's difficult. But I wanted to also really quick. I forgot about it and just remember now when you're telling your story about coworkers. I remember at my job having a lot of different coworkers when I explained the idea of retiring early, right? And I had so many different viewpoints, and I remember one that still sticks with me today that, you know, we had many debates and they still don't see the way that I see things. And I think they understand it, just they just don't see. They don't see the way that I see things. And it was interesting. They're almost like a socialist in the sense that they believe that it's like a social duty to perform the work. So I remember I was mentally checked out in my last little bit of working, and I was going through a lot of things on the side with real estate, so I was super stressed with that stuff. And so work was like, I was doing the bare minimum. I wasn't, and a lot of people in our workforce, they were going above and beyond, staying till 9, and we were on this project, and he's like, I remember him saying to me, like, are you really going to be an asshole and not stay with me till 9:30 and get this project done? He's like, don't you want to do well for the company? Like, he's like, how will our company look if this isn't like 10 out of 10 for the client? And I'm like, honestly, man, I'm not gonna say his name, but like, honestly, man, I'm like, if we deliver a 7.5 for the client or we deliver a 10 for the client, it's really not gonna matter all that much. And I explained that. He just lost it. Like, he was like, he's like, it's not about the money. He's like, they could pay us 0 and we should be here tonight. It's not about the money. He's like, the money means nothing. And I'm like, I know, the money does mean nothing. We can agree on that. Like, I don't care about the money. And I also don't really care about whether the brand of the company looks great on this project or whether, like, if we deliver it in 3 days or in 2 days, like, we look a little bit better to the client to deliver early. That was the goal. We wanted to deliver this thing early before a long weekend. If we delivered it after the long weekend, you know what? Like, the project we were actually working on was not really that sensitive. It was a bit of a restructuring within the company. Our consulting recommendations probably weren't implemented for like a year after we delivered the report. Like, was it really that sensitive? Like, I get that the brand is important, but that to me was just, and I still to this day, I can't understand why someone would believe that the good of, like, he even made arguments about, like, what about your coworkers? Like, they all take a lot of pride in their job. He's like, if we stopped getting paid tomorrow, he's like, we'd all show up. We'd all keep going. And I'm like, I think you would just show up. Like, I don't think the rest of the company, if payroll stopped, I don't think people would keep coming in. He's like, he believed that, like, he would actually come in for like a year without pay because he believed in the company message. And I was like, that's a rare breed of person. And those type of people, I don't think can understand.
No.
But so that one's still in my mind is like,
that's crazy.
I remember when I left, I felt a little bad. He said something like that I was like failing all my coworkers and like just letting my whole company down he's like, you have a gift. He's like, you should be delivering that gift to clients and you should be helping our company grow. He's like, by forsaking the company and doing your own thing, that's selfish of you. Like, it's very selfish of you. And I'm like, like, at the end of the day, I felt really selfish, like, leaving. But like, that stuck with me. It's one of the things that, like, this guy, I couldn't rationalize with him. There was no, like, money didn't matter.
Yeah, that sounds like a true,
like, I don't know,
socialist
like
Marxist
like,
mentality, right? From each according to his ability to each according to his needs type thing, where
it's like you should just do it because it's good for society.
Slave, I hate that idea. Because at the end of the day, financial independence to me is all about opportunities, choices, and freedom, right? Like, financial freedom is the most important thing. So I think, in summary, guys, all we really want to tell you is there's no perfect or cookie cutter approach in order to determine when you can fire. The 4% safe withdrawal rate's great. Figuring out what you spend is extremely important, and figuring out kind of what you're going to spend once you are financially independent, like Michael said, whether you're going to have a fatter fire or a leaner fire. Figure that out, but otherwise, don't be afraid to make that leap. I think that for both of us, financial independence was the best, like, quitting our jobs, retiring early. Yeah, absolutely. And it's created all these interesting opportunities, and all those opportunities will still lead to opportunities for you to earn income if you need to or if you want to. So otherwise, just want to tell you guys, check out Michael's blog, 25 and Free, and I'll put a link down in the video description down below. Otherwise, smash that like button if you haven't already smashed it. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. And check out the other videos YouTube wants you to check out. But we'll see you in the next video. And just a little tease for the next video, I think we're going to talk about what to do before you actually quit your job. Because there's a lot of things you should do before you quit your job.
We'll do a checklist for you guys.
Perfect.
Like, let's do that.
All right. We'll see you in the next video, guys. Thanks.
See you guys. Bye. Mike and Matt on fire out. Like a smoke bomb or something.